Rangers fans, welcome to Liberty Blue, the best Rangers podcast in town. I am Andrew Choney alongside Nick Zararis. We scream about the Rangers so that you can save your voice and that you don't have to. This is episode 53 live on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Going at you live on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m.
From the surface of Mars.
From a surface of Mars, that's right, as opposed to Monday at 6. I've been in the process of a move, hence the changed background. Thank you to Nick, who has been very patient with me as I postponed and moved the recording time about 47 times within the past few days. But you know who else is patient, Nick? Because that would be Christopher Drury, because it is June 7th. Gerard Gallant was fired a year ago, and the Rangers still don't have a head coach.
I'm going to give you a euphemism that most people listening or watching this are going to understand. The club lights have come on. It is 4 a.m. They still don't know where they're going after the bar that's closed, but they have to make a decision because somebody in a suit just came over to them and said, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. That's where the Rangers are at right now. The lights have come on in the club. They've been out all night. They've yet to make a decision if they're going to approach a woman or if they're just going to go home, if they're going to go to a secondary location, if they're going to try and get some drugs. They haven't decided what they're going to do yet. They are looking around befuddled as if they weren't aware that the available coaching candidates weren't that great to begin with.
Yep. Well, and apparently Patrick Waugh is not considered a candidate at all.
That's good, at least.
So, listen, and I tweeted this out a couple of days ago, if I had to pick between three people of Waugh, Hynes, and Laviolette, the two of those three, there's no situation in which you could convince me that these are good hires. Hynes and Laviolette are people that there is no world in which I'm like, you know what, this could work. At least with Waugh, if you told me you have to pick one. There is only these three options, and there's nobody else on the planet that will coach the Rangers. I can see a world in which I'll be like, you know what, Waugh could do, I guess, something. I mean, I think his junior team just won the Memorial Cup, if I'm not mistaken, because I don't follow the juniors. Yes. So okay, but you could convince me that okay, so Patrick Waugh learned from his mistakes in Colorado. He's gotten more experience under his belt, so maybe there's a world in which he makes sense if you give the parameters of those three. But he's not a candidate, so it doesn't matter. And it's still, I guess, between Laviolette and Hynes, there's still no real clarity as to who the other potential candidates are besides those two as of right now. I know that they've interviewed a couple of people here and there throughout the process, but we've only really heard about two people recently, and neither one is good. So I beg of you, Christopher, please, just please interview more people, please.
I think realistically, they didn't know what they wanted. They cast a relatively wide net. The game of musical chairs has progressed. We've seen Brunette get a job. We see Mike Babcock is going to get a job. I'm sure we'll make fun of that at some point later on in the episode.
Yeah.
But at this point, there's two vacancies left, Calgary and the Rangers. Calgary seems very likely that they're going to hire one of the internal guys, whether it be their associate head coach or their AHL head coach. And the Rangers have the runt of the litter to pick from: Hynes, Laviolette, Patrick Waugh, who not a candidate. None of these guys is particularly enticing. It would have been very funny if the Rangers announced this hiring at 4 o'clock today when the mayor told everybody to go home and not to go out tomorrow so that nobody would be able to come cover the press conference tomorrow. That would be a very smart way to bury this. Yeah. Or announce it on Friday and do the press conference on Saturday. Because if it's down to these two guys, you don't feel good about either of these guys, and that's why you're dragging your feet so much to make a decision. You know how when you go to the store and you know you want something, you get it and you leave? The Rangers have been staring at the display case for 45 minutes and still haven't decided. They might have asked an employee there a couple of questions, but they still haven't decided what they want, and that's why we're still here. Neither of these guys is particularly enticing, and they know that. They know that if they hire John Hynes, they are going to get you hired a devil's reject from every single person in this fan base. Laviolette, you have a little bit more. There's a little bit more of a, I won't say a warmth. I would say the general consensus of people is that Laviolette is a pretty uninspiring candidate, but that he's just better than John Hynes. That's still a tough sell, somebody who's been cast off from multiple jobs in the last couple cycles and not doing a particularly bang-up job in either of those places. Peter Laviolette hasn't won a playoff series in forever. And the Rangers' goal is to win a Stanley Cup because that's why you fired Gerard Gallant, because you felt he wasn't going to get you closer to winning your Stanley Cup. So we sit here at this real impasse where there's no obvious candidate. There's not a lot of information out there either, because we recall 2 weeks ago, Elliot Friedman said, well, the Rangers are really looking at Laviolette hard. And then John Hynes got fired from Nashville. And all of a sudden, the process got recycled and restarted.
Right. Well, by the way, what is it about John Hynes, besides him knowing people, that makes him a candidate for his job?
With Chris Drury.
Like, I just want to be in an NHL world where people are hired for what they can do as opposed to who they played college hockey with. Like, David Quinn got hired because he went to the same college as Mike Greer. John Hynes played in the same played with Chris Drury in college. Like, I don't care.
Correct.
Can you coach this team? That is what I care about personally, as a fan of the sport and as a fan of this team. That drives me absolutely insane. Can you coach the team to success? With John Hynes, who he has done none of that throughout his entire career.
Playoff appearances. He's won 2 playoff games in those
zero playoff longevity. So what about that potential hire is going to make any Rangers fan excited for the future? If you hire John Hynes, a guy who has been around the block for a while now, has done nothing come playoff time across a multitude of attempts, and this is your answer? This is your answer to Gerard Gallant? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And if Chris Drury hires his buddy, his pal, his friend, as opposed to somebody that can actually coach the team, the Rangers are in a much worse situation than we realized.
That's really where it comes down to for me, because all the Rangers have done is preach how you have to earn you have to earn responsibility on this team. If you want to play up in the lineup, you need to play well in your role and earn your way up. It's always been a crock of shit used by people at the top of that power structure pyramid to justify keeping people down at the bottom of that pyramid. This is all the proof you need. They're going to hire a guy who the Nashville Predators, who've had one general manager in 30 years, got rid of, and the New Jersey Devils got rid of. You're looking at Peter Laviolette, who has coached half of the teams in the Metropolitan Division and hasn't won a playoff series, I think, since 2017. We're not exactly... these are not guys who have earned it. You want to talk about earn it, look at Knobloch. Look at Leach. Yep. Look at Mitch Love. Look at somebody who's actually put in the legwork in the AHL. John Hynes has a long track record at the NHL level now. I want to say it's 8 seasons as a head coach, something like that. That's a real track record. I have it here over my notes. He's coached 9 seasons in the NHL. He's made the playoffs twice. He's never finished higher than 4th place. He's never won a playoff series. He's been 4-1 in both of the playoff series he's made. That tells me either this guy's just been in terrible situations and he's gotten a raw deal and the Rangers are going to be the ones that give him a better deal. He over relies on his defense and goaltending, like most of these mediocre coaches in the soggy middle who can't generate effective 5-on-5 play. Sounds
like something that we've seen for the better part of the 21st century with the Rangers.
The Rangers see, this is where it becomes interesting, because the overarching theme to all of this has been, and we've been talking about this for a month now since they fired Gallant, is the flaws within the roster. So this brings me to my natural question. Are the Rangers good at evaluating talent? This is where we get into this discussion, because that's really the fundamental principle here. It doesn't matter if it's coaching talent or player talent. If you can identify, hey, this guy is good, hey, he's good. There's no caveats, there's no buts. It's if he's good, he's good. If he's not, he's not. Where the Rangers have gotten bogged down, especially in the last couple of years, is they're good at this. They're good at this. They're not good. They're not well-rounded. They're good at this. They're not just flat out good. They're good, but That's been the Rangers' issue for a while now with identifying talent. Is they go out and get guys who are good, specialized at one thing, and they really overpay for that one thing that they're supposed to give them, and that's
Right.
why we're in this impasse right now, and why it's I think it's a real reflection of the coaching searches. I don't know if the Rangers can identify talent at a particularly high level.
And we don't really have an answer to it until we actually kind of have a sense of who they hire. Because if it is really between these two coaches, then like what are we doing? Like what is the overall goal of the Rangers organization? What is the overall goal for Chris Drury? Because if you hire John Hynes, who through 9 seasons, as you mentioned in the league, has done absolutely nothing come playoff time, never made it past the first round. Like this is a coach that, I mean, at a certain point, like it is a lot of it is on the players. Like the head coach isn't playing the games. Like he could only prepare the team as much as he can, and then off to the races. It's up to the players to score the goals, to make the plays, to make the saves. John Hynes isn't doing any of that, and I understand that. But 9 seasons of mediocrity doesn't exactly scream to me, oh, this is the perfect guy to all of a sudden replace Gerard Gallant and bring this team to the Stanley Cup final and win. Like that just doesn't do it for me. And for Peter Laviolette, like I know you tweet this out, like I know we talked about it. Like if you're gonna show me highlights in standard definition of a coach, I'm not about it. Like I don't care. I don't care about what a coach did in a different era of hockey. 2006 was 17 years ago in a completely different era, different style of hockey in 360p definition video. Like I don't care. I
You know
need
what the
some.
comparison would be, Andrew? I was thinking about this. It'd be like someone hiring George Karl right now to coach their team. It was
I
great.
mean,
He was successful 15 years
yeah,
ago.
that's right.
It was great. He was successful 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But we're in the present tense right now. You got to be able to actually show me you've done something in recent times.
The comparison that I want to draw from to Peter Laviolette is to Patrick Kane, because the reasoning for both of these guys is very much apparently the same. Of this guy has a resume, so it doesn't matter what he can do for us now because he has the resume. He has
Exactly.
a ring. He had the prior success, so he could do it here. He's Showtime. And then
This
Patrick
ties
Kane
into
got
what I was
here.
just saying.
Patrick Kane got here, was brutal, even though we were saying it for months that he was going to be brutal because he's not the 2010 Patrick Kane Showtime. And what do you know? He was bad. And now I would really hope that they're not going to resign Patrick Kane. But like Peter Laviolette's of the same vein of this guy was successful 1,000 years ago, but because he has the name brand and people around the league know him, oh, how bad could it be? Give him a shot. And and lo and behold, we did it with Patrick Kane, and look how that came out. So if you want to do it again, be my guest.
This ties into what I was saying before about being able to identify talent. Part of identifying talent is understanding what made those people successful. The Rangers are totally ignorant of what makes people successful in other places. They see a player who has success somewhere else and says, "Ooh, I want that," and bolts them onto the team with no consideration for the fit. We've been talking about this about Trocheck for a full season now. Trocheck's a solid hockey player. He fit a lot better in Carolina because they were a volume straight line team that wasn't looking for dangerous scoring chances. Vinny Trocheck, if his job is just to get pucks on net, forecheck, that kind of thing, great. If his job is to keep up with Panarin and Zibanejad and Kreider,
my
and
set, by the way, is falling apart. I don't know if people are seeing that, but like I said, I'm in the middle of a move. So this wall was blank about half an hour ago because we are still like in the process of putting everything together, and the top thing fell apart. Like this is falling apart. This is I guess I can pretend it's part of the act, but like it's not. Because there's blue tape on the wall right now. It shouldn't be there. But like, you know what? Let's just pretend that this is full of Rangers things and continue.
But yeah, it's all tied together. Being ignorant of what makes people successful in other places has been the Rangers' issue. They saw Jacob Trouba have a 50-point season in Winnipeg and said, "We need a number one defenseman." Totally ignorant of the fact that they had a defense first partner in Dustin Byfuglien playing on his offside to cover for him to maximize him, or playing with Josh Morrissey, a really good player who had a Norris caliber season this year. You think about the other players that they bolted on. Some have been more successful. Panarin didn't need any help. Panarin is that good. Where it didn't matter what you did, he wasn't going to stink. You couldn't put the Ranger sweater on him and turn him into 2011 Scott Gomez. That's how good Artemi Panarin is. You think about Scott Gomez, you think about Chris Drury, you think about Wade Redden, you think about Dan Boyle. I can keep going on and on with these guys who were good players in other places. The Rangers didn't want to do the work of developing their own talented guys, totally ignorant of why they were good in these other places, dropped them in New York, and then threw their hands up and why isn't this working? You were so good in San Jose. You were so good in Tampa Bay. You were so good in Winnipeg. Why isn't this working? That's the issue, to me at least, is that the Rangers don't really understand. They don't understand what makes a successful hockey team. They can identify good players, but they can't identify what makes those players good. And that's been the issue here. And I think it flows into this coaching search now, where you got to think about it. A week ago, John Hynes was a Nashville Predators coach and wasn't a candidate for this job. If Laviolette was as close to this job as Elliot Friedman led us to believe 2 or 3 weeks ago, he would have it by now. The fact that they have not hired him leads me to believe that either A, they're waiting to see if somebody else becomes available, whether it's Sheldon Keefe, whether it's Joel Quenneville, or they're genuinely going to hire Laviolette after making him wait 8 weeks, realistically. Because my personal favorite thing I've read this week was Vince saying the Rangers could hire a coach as soon as Thursday or maybe next week. That's not news.
that doesn't
That's not reporting.
Right.
I can tweet that. The Rangers might hire a coach by Thursday or maybe next week. Right. That's not journalism. Saying they might do something, unless you know the process is moving along. That's not reporting. That is guessing.
By the way, I know we haven't been particularly nice to the insiders before, but the insiders this week they are just I'm at my breaking point right now with these insiders.
Shout out Elliot tweeting the Columbus Blue Jackets link to the trade.
Dude, I'm so sick and tired of these insiders. I tweeted this, I think it was yesterday, 2 days ago. Like, all they do is high five each other. That's all that they high five each other, and then they do favors for other people. That's all they do. Like, they didn't break the trade. They didn't break the Cole Caulfield extension. They didn't break the Provorov got traded. Like the Anaheim Ducks got a new head coach, and the team tweeted it. What are we doing here? Like, am I going crazy, dude? Like, the insiders, that is your job. How does a team break head coaching news before you? What are you doing? I feel like I do the same yell about these insiders on every episode, because it's the same thing every episode, where they just they will quote tweet the team breaking news. They will say this, and then they'll have the emoji pointing down. Like, the NHL insiders are so useless. Like, that's just I will never take for granted, like, doing what I do full time, like working in the NBA media. But part of the reason why is because they actually have insiders in the NBA that do their job. They don't, like, Chris Hynes earlier today was like, "Oh yeah, Chris Paul's gonna get waived, bro." The NHL will never happen. The team account will tweet it, and then like 15 minutes later, Elliot would be like, "Oh yeah, confirming this." All right, bro. Good job.
This is one of my main gripes when especially in the NHL, when they have the talking head panels at the games and they provide no analysis, and I can't hear them because the crowd is louder than them. So you wasted all that money to fly out a crew, set up a stage, all of that, just to be like, aren't we so cool? We're at the game, which is effectively what the NHL insiders do. Isn't it so cool that people give us information? Isn't it so cool I can tweet this opaque ass message and maybe kind of give you guys information that you may or may not be able to use, because that's realistically where we're at, especially at this point in the cycle where there's 2 vacancies. We have no clarity on either of them as far as what the timeline is looking like. I know on Monday, Elliot said something like the Flames are starting their 2nd or 3rd round of interviews this week. That's great, Elliot. Who are the candidates they're interviewing? This is the stuff that loses our minds. Okay, moving along from just the bitching about the insiders who are just atrocious. None of this is inspiring a lot of confidence. It is really where I think a lot of the fan base is at. And I think it's in real direct contrast to the end of last year, where the playoff run last year ended on an optimistic note of well, they're ahead of schedule. There are flaws on this team, but they have a little bit of flexibility left. They still don't know exactly what they have in these young guys. Maybe there's a little bit more growth you can get out of Kakko, Hedel, Lafreniere, Andre Miller, Braden Schneider, and that can make up the gap and make your team better. Now it kind of feels like we're all just waiting for the inevitable first marquee player to get traded a year and a half, 2 years from now. And it's just, it's really weird how quick that happened, because even going into that series against the Devils, you felt like you could get at least a round or 2. Now you're going back to the drawing board with extensions kicking in for certain players. You have Lafreniere and Andre Miller to figure out. Kakko is next year. And that's basically all your cap flexibility is those 3 guys. And then, sure, you're going to get your backup goalie. You're going to get a middle 6 forward more than likely. You're going to get a 6th defenseman, unless you do Zach Jones, in which case you could do 2 forwards. But
I don't think it's going to be Zach Jones, because if they really like Zach Jones, they would have been playing him last year.
See, this is one of the points that we can talk about that actually we do have a little bit of information about. Is, from what I understand, this is one of the sticking points for why Drury ultimately decided to fire Gallant, aside from the exit interviews, was Gallant's insistence in playing a lineup in a way that Drury didn't want it assembled. And sure, that like you firing the guy will alleviate that, but at the same time, Chris, if you hired a guy and very clearly didn't want to work with you, why did you hire him in the first place? Because if this brings us back to what we were just talking about. Gallant was successful in Vegas. Yeah. Why was he successful? He had a lot of average is disrespectful. He had a lot of good players. None of them were particularly elite until the 2nd, 3rd season he was there, and they retooled the roster. They gave him Pietrangelo, they got Mark Stone, etc. But until that happened, it was a lot of straight line up and down. What did the Rangers give him? A bunch of high-end guys and a bunch of kids. Guys not conducive to his play style. And then Drury, frustrated that he's not getting the best out of the players on the roster, says, well, you got to play the roster the way I want you to. It's why he traded Ryan Reeves in December. I don't want him in the lineup anymore. If he's not on the team, you can't play him anymore.
Objectively a good decision, by the way, because this man can't play hockey. But unless you're listening to Rangers Facebook, it was a
Andrew,
great move.
You got stay off of Facebook.
You got
There's nothing good.
I did a good thing the other day, Nick. I left all of those groups because whatever's left.
Facebook installed on your phone.
Whatever I need it for birthdays and reels. That is what I'm there for.
This is why you check your email. You get the notification for someone's birthday. You throw it in your Google Calendar. I've been doing that over the course of the last few years. I get all the birthdays I need in my Google Calendar. For the 15 to 20 people I regularly talk to whose birthdays I need to know, they're in my Google Calendar. Get rid of Facebook. Nothing productive is happening on Facebook. The only people who are on Facebook in those groups are people who have nothing to do all day, who are miserably bored.
Yeah.
Those are largely people who are over the age of 45, who have jobs where they don't have a lot to do minute to minute, or people who are at home full-time retired, who wax nostalgic about wooden sticks and bucket list helmets.
I left those groups, man. You know, I'm getting better.
It's not good for your mentals.
It's not. Some of those takes, man, I was in those groups for longer than I should have been, mainly just to see what kind of absolutely psychotic opinions some people have. But after a while, I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I don't want to argue about Ryan Reeves and why the Rangers don't miss him. Like I'm
even if
I'm
they
tired
did,
of
he
it.
plays 9 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how much is a
If
guy
he
who
was
plays
such
9 minutes a game impacting the team? Like, great. If
right,
everyone likes him, that's great. Uh,
have him
Get him.
behind the bench.
Isn't it funny how we
Like,
never hear about how good players are also good people? It's
right.
only the bad players who get
Yeah.
justified for
Well,
being on the
because
team.
they
For being
can't you can't highlight their positives on the ice because there are none. So you have to I think it was Friedman at the time when the Rangers signed Jack Johnson when he was like, oh, they signed him for the leadership and whatnot. Like that was that's what he said because he couldn't say anything positive about the guy on the ice. It's the same thing with guys like Ryan Reeves and other 13th forwards. It's like he can't play hockey, but boy, do they like him in there. It's like, dude, he can't play hockey, so why is he here?
So speaking of Jack Johnson, one of my favorite hockey conspiracy theories Reddit put me onto is that all of the teams in the league keep signing him to these 1-year deals because everybody feels bad that his parents stole all his money, and they're all taking turns taking care of him and giving him short-term 1-year deals for a little bit of money because everyone feels collectively bad. And that's why Jack Johnson's been allowed to stay in hockey as
like that's not the worst.
That's
one.
a plausible conspiracy.
That's plausible. Also, counterpoint to that, just make him like director of personnel development.
Job.
Like just give him like an actual like desk job.
Yeah.
If you feel like genuinely bad for this guy and you're like, we want to give you some money because of how much you got screwed out of, through outside circumstances that weren't your fault. Let's give you a cushy job and you can just walk around and pretend like that you're doing a lot of good work and we'll pay you handsomely and that's it. Instead of here's a 1-year deal to be terrible on our hockey team because we feel bad. Hey, like maybe you're great at like directing practices, or maybe you're great at maybe you're great in the video room. Who knows? Like maybe Jack Johnson is really good at dissecting film. I don't know. I have no clue, but maybe he is. So it would behoove teams, SAT word for everybody out there. It would behoove.
That's a good one.
It would behoove teams to just give him a job that doesn't involve him playing during the game. Like if they want to do that, give him a desk job, man. Everybody wins.
All right. I've been I can't say I've been surprised based on how the Cup finals have gone. Bob was going to turn back into a pumpkin at some point. I just felt like it was going to happen. And I somebody expressed it really concisely, and I'm about to butcher it by adding a lot more words to it. But someone wrote something to the effect of, the Leafs finally got out of the first round, only to play the super hot goalie on the crazy heater, who magically turns back into a pumpkin after beating a team that the Leafs easily could have beaten in the third round, just to maximize the pain and suffering of the Toronto Maple Leaf fan base. I think that's realistic, because that's what's happening. Vegas has played well. Florida's definitely taken a fair share of stupid penalties, which one of the funny things is, during the Carolina series and the series against Toronto, it was all hardy har. Isn't it funny that the Panthers are beating the shit out of everybody and not getting called for penalties? And now the panel's like, well, they got to play more disciplined. I don't know why they're doing this. They did this for a month and a half. They just didn't get called for it in those games. That's my biggest gripe with hockey analysis. It's all retcon. It's all after the fact. No one has these takes when it's happening. Right. It's only after it's already happened.
Yeah,
Florida's an undisciplined team. They take a lot of penalties. We've known this about them.
The Panthers, like, it's Bobrovsky definitely like isn't playing at a .999 save percentage like he has been against Carolina and Toronto, but his team also is doing not a whole lot to kind of help him out. Like his team is taking a lot of penalties, as you mentioned. They're not defending very well. Mark Stahl, you gotta retire. Listen,
the Mark Stahl caping,
gotta retire.
The Mark
gotta
Stahl,
retire, brother. Like, listen, you had a great career. You had a great career. It is time for you to go. My man's is getting dumpstered in these finals. Like it is kind of sad. Like, listen, Paul Maurice. You gotta bench this guy.
Is this an OSHA violation? Is this an elder abuse situation?
This is Paul Maurice has to be breaking some kind of law to be continuing to put Mark Stahl out there. Because my God, like somebody's gonna be paying Paul Maurice to be like, yo, I am putting my house on the Vegas Golden Knights. Keep playing Mark Stahl. You better keep playing Mark Stahl, and he's doing it. Because he's getting a cut. I made that up. That's not true, but I'm pretending it is because that's the only reasonable thing that I can think of that would make Paul Maurice continue to play Mark Stahl. I mean, he has been an absolute atrocity on the blue line throughout the playoffs for sure, but especially in these playoffs, and especially in these finals. I mean, he's been brutal, and not only does Vegas know that, they are actively attacking him every
Expose
time,
him.
and he gets beat every time. Oh, I for one am shocked that bad defenseman gets constantly beat, and the other team continues to attack him because they know he's bad, but Paul Maurice continues to play him. I for one, so shocked.
Yeah, man. There has been some nasty cape wearing for Mark Stahl, Brett Howden,
Brett Howden,
Sammy Blais.
The Brooks tweet.
Brooks is shameless, man. Brooks, when he likes a player,
was really bad.
He will go to the mat for a guy if he likes a guy.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has their favorites. Everybody who does sports media, they have guys who they enjoy. But when Larry likes a guy, he defends them to the earth's core. Brett Howden was the worst player in the entire NHL the last season he was in New York. The fact that they got a draft pick for him, they got anything for him, is a minor miracle. Yeah. The fact he's playing with Chandler Stevenson and Eichel in stretches, yeah, no wonder he's playing moderately okay. He's got two guys who do everything for him. All he has to do is get cardio in, which, as Ranger fans know, is the Brett Howden special.
That is right.
That is the Tony Snell of the NHL. He is out there just to get minutes. No points, no rebounds, no assists, no fouls. He's just out there to get the heart rate over 120. Right. That's all Brett Howden's out there for, man. Nasty cape wearing. I understand everybody's disappointed that the Rangers didn't go far in the playoffs. None of those three guys would have helped against the Devils. Not Mark Stahl, not Brett Howden, not Sammy Blais. None of those guys would have helped against the Devils. I understand feeling this like emptiness in your soul, feeling like, hey, the Rangers are better than the Panthers. We could have been here. I understand that. You don't need to go justifying like, hey, maybe if we just did this instead of this. With players who are bad, if you got to do that, it's time to log off. It's time to go touch. Yeah. But I can't say go touch grass because it's not safe to be outside in the New York area right now. Get a plant. Go to Home Depot. Get a plant.
Well, you can't go to Home Depot. You can't go outside.
Wear a mask when you go to Home Depot.
Oh, I guess. Well, if you're gonna wear a mask, might as well go touch grass with a mask on.
Okay, that's fine. I'm okay. I'd agree to that. I'll go touch grass for everybody else because the people on Twitter defending these guys who stink like. If the Ranger fans were nicer to Sammy Blais on Twitter, maybe he would have agreed to extend his contract and Drury wouldn't have had to trade him. What are we doing here, people? What are we doing? We have lost the plot entirely. We're a bad team. Yeah. Bad players do not make a bad team better. I don't understand this wanting guys who aren't good at hockey back.
Yes, the 0 goals in 100 games that he scored as a Ranger will definitely make this. Will definitely push this team over the edge. Yeah, you're right. You're 100%.
But Howden had 6 goals in the regular season, and people are talking about him like he could have been a viable Andrew Kopp solution. Oh yeah, he could have been 18 goals to 50.
Because because it's a lot easier, Nick, to live in the moment, and it's a lot easier to be to live in that kind of prisoner of the moment situation of like, hey, this guy has scored 2 goals in the past 80 seconds or whatever. Like, I'm just making it up, but like Brett Howden, he scored a goal. What the Rangers needed that? Oh, I can't believe they gave him up. It's like, dude, like you can't just look at the past 80 seconds and say that. You have to look at the entire body of work to make an informed decision.
That requires critical thinking, which the vast majority of people are incapable of.
It's baffling to me, man. Like the Brett Howden, the redemption arc, he's definitely played better in Vegas, but that's not really saying a whole lot because he was an atrocity for the Rangers. All he did was skate. That's it.
We're talking about somebody who was a 2 percentile WAR player. You know how there's 100 percentiles? Brett Howden was 2nd percentile in WAR his last season in New York. Not a useful hockey player.
No.
He's got 2 guys to carry him right now, and that's why he's playing well. Okay. Anything else you want to get in before we dip so we can go watch the Nuggets and Heat?
I just want to live in a world in which the NHL insiders do their job. That's all I want. Because I work in the NBA media world, and we have plenty of insiders that do their jobs. You have so many people that are getting the correct information, that are doing the digging. The Phoenix Suns didn't tweet, "Hey, we're waiving Chris Paul." They didn't say that. The Chris Hynes did, because he's an insider, because he works for that information, because he wants to do his job. Now, I am begging the check marks of the NHL media sphere. I don't care about your cottage. I don't care about your margaritas. Although Bob McKenzie, I love you, but I don't care about your margaritas. I want you to do the work that insiders do. Please. Thank you. Appreciate it.
My message is a lot more simple. Shit's really bad. Eat Arby's. The Rangers probably won't be better next year.
The duality of man. All right, we're out. Later.
See you guys next week.